Admiral Keffer stood on the bridge of his command station, gazing out at the endless stars through the massive view window. His long reptilian tail swayed slowly as he reviewed the reports flashing across his screen. The Galactic Empire had ruled the stars for over 3,000 years, and Keffer took pride in his service to it. Every day brought word of new worlds added to the Empire's dominion, some willingly, most through force. His eyes shifted to the display, showing the Empire's latest conquest. Another planet had fallen only yesterday. The inhabitants had tried to resist, but their weapons were pitifully weak. Now, they would labor in the Empire's mines, digging metals to build even more warships. Such was the way of the galaxy. The strong ruled, and the weak served, far from the Empire's command station. Jake Martinez sat in the captain's chair aboard his small human vessel, the Defiance. Concealed behind an asteroid field, his ship quietly watched the Imperial fleet through high-powered surveillance cameras. At just 32, Jake was young for a captain, but he'd been preparing for this role his entire life. "Captain, I'm picking up another transmission," reported Amy Foster from her communications console. She was a quiet woman with sharp eyes, able to catch signals from across the galaxy. "The Imperials are moving," she added grimly. Lisa Reynolds glanced up from the tactical display. She had been Jake's closest friend since their academy days, and he trusted her instincts without question. "Sir, they're repositioning 12 battle groups toward the outer rim," she said. "That's enough firepower to wipe out 100 worlds." Jake's jaw tightened. He had anticipated this. For the past 6 months, his small fleet had been tracking the Empire's movements, learning their routes, counting their ships. Their mission was clear, though dangerous: gather intelligence for the war to come. From his engineering station, Pete Carson spoke up. "Captain, our stealth systems are holding for now, but if they sweep this sector with deep scans, we'll be exposed." Jake knew the risk. Humanity had been in hiding for 25 years. After first contact with the Empire had gone disastrously wrong, with diplomats captured and tortured. Revealing Earth's location, the Empire had launched an invasion, but they found nothing. In a desperate, brilliant move, humanity had evacuated their entire planet. Every person, every animal, every trace of life relocated to secret colonies scattered across space. Earth was left barren, a ghost world, yet humanity survived, waiting, rebuilding, and preparing. "Show me that transmission," Jake ordered. Amy tapped a few controls, and the message appeared on the main screen. It was in the Empire's language, but their computers translated it instantly. As Jake read, a cold fury settled in his chest. The message spoke of a refugee world called Haven 7, home to millions of beings who had fled imperial slavery. The Empire had discovered its location and planned to attack. In 3 days, their ships would arrive to wipe out every life on the planet. "How long to reach Haven 7 at full speed?" Jake asked. Lisa scanned her console. 18 hours, sir. But if we go, we'll blow our cover. The Empire will know humanity survived. Jake's eyes stayed on the message. Millions would die if he did nothing, but if he acted now, he'd risk humanity's entire resistance. For a quarter century, they had remained hidden, growing stronger, waiting for the right moment to strike. But that moment wasn't meant to be now. Amy spoke quietly. "Captain, I'm getting similar reports from our other scout ships. The Empire's planning attacks on 5 refugee worlds. They're clearing the sector of anyone who might stand against them." A heavy silence filled the bridge. Everyone understood what this meant. The Empire was preparing for something bigger, and wanted no possible threats in their path. Jake closed his eyes, recalling his standing orders: watch, report, do not engage. Admiral Susan Hayes had been very clear. Humanity wasn't ready for open war, but some orders needed to be broken. "Pete, ready the jump drive," Jake said calmly. Lisa turned toward him, concern in her voice. Sir, if we reveal ourselves. Now, I know what it means, Jake cut her off. But I won't stand by while they commit genocide. Not when we can stop it. Amy hesitated. Captain, what about our mission? About staying hidden? Jake looked around at his crew. These young men and women who had become family through years of dangerous work. All volunteers, all willing to risk their lives for the cause. But above all else, they were human. And humans didn't abandon the innocent. Our real mission, Jake said, isn't to hide. It's to protect those who can't protect themselves. He turned to Amy. Send a signal. Tell Admiral Hayes the waiting is over. Amy's fingers moved over her console, inputting the special code that would broadcast a message across the galaxy to every hidden human base. The rebellion was about to begin. The message was brief, but it would change the fate of the galaxy. The children of Earth are coming home. As the signal raced through the void between stars, Jake Martinez felt the weight of history settle on his shoulders. For 25 years, humanity had waited for this moment, building ships in hidden shipyards, training soldiers in secret colonies, and developing weapons the Empire couldn't begin to imagine. Now, the time had come. The Empire believed it had destroyed humanity long ago. Soon, it would learn just how wrong it had been. On the Imperial throne world, Emperor Vextal lounged on his golden seat, reading over the endless stream of reports. From his sprawling empire, the towering alien had ruled unchallenged for 2 centuries, and his species had held dominion over the galaxy for millennia. Nothing surprised him anymore. No enemy remained to threaten his rule. Until now, my lord, said General Mord as he entered the Grand Chamber, a data pad in his clawed grip. We're detecting unusual readings in the outer territories. Our sensors are picking up energy signatures that don't match any known vessels. The Emperor looked up, his crimson eyes glowing faintly in the dim chamber. What kind of signatures? Unknown, sire. They appear and vanish almost instantly. Our scientists suggest natural phenomena or sensor malfunctions. Several patrol ships investigated, but found nothing. Vextal waved a hand, dismissing the report. Likely solar storms, or old equipment. Have the technicians look into it. The general bowed and left without another word. The Emperor returned to his reports, unaware that those fleeting signals weren't malfunctions. They were human ships, dropping out of hyperspace, and there were more coming. Captain Ryan Bell stood tall on the bridge of the UE Thunderstrike, his eyes fixed on the view screen as one human warship after another emerged from hyperspace around his flagship. Each arrival filled him with equal parts pride and unease. This was the moment they had all trained for their entire lives leading to this. Captain, reported Carol Davis from the weapons console, the Wolverine and its battle group just arrived. That makes 200 ships in our sector. From navigation. Steve Johnson spoke up. Sir, I'm detecting hyperspace signatures from a dozen directions. Looks like Admiral Hayes is bringing in the whole fleet. Ryan gave a grim nod. The plan was bold, bordering on reckless. For 25 years, scattered across secret shipyards and colonies, humanity had quietly assembled its forces. Now, for the first time, every ship was converging for a single purpose, to strike back. Dr. Helen Wright stepped onto the bridge, carrying a tablet. Captain, I've completed the combat readiness check. All crew are fit for duty. But I need to ask, are we really doing this? We're doing this, Doc, Ryan answered. Jake Martinez sent the call. The Empire's about to wipe out 5 refugee worlds. We can't let it happen. Helen nodded solemnly. A civilian, before the war. She'd joined the fight for the same reason as so many others, because standing by while innocents died was no longer an option. Captain Carroll called out. Admiral Hayes is requesting a briefing with all ship commanders in 10 minutes. Ryan straightened his uniform. Put her through. The main screen flickered, revealing Admiral Susan Hayes, standing at the heart of her flagship's command center. Behind her, officers worked frantically, coordinating the largest human fleet ever assembled. Captain Hayes began, her voice steady and resolute. What we do today will reshape the galaxy. For 25 years, we've hidden in the shadows while the Empire enslaved and murdered. But today, we step into the light. Ryan glanced around his bridge. His crew was young but hardened by training and years of silent war. Carol Davis, a weapons specialist with unmatched aim. Steve Johnson, the finest navigator in known space. Dr. Helen Wright, who'd saved more lives than she could count. Every one of them was ready. The Empire believes they destroyed us, the Admiral continued. They think humanity is extinct. They're about to discover we're alive, and we're very, very angry. The briefing lasted 30 minutes. Admiral Hayes laid out the plan. The fleet would strike in 3 massive waves, targeting Imperial strongholds, shipyards, and command stations simultaneously. A coordinated assault unlike anything the Empire had faced in centuries. Meanwhile, on the Imperial throne world, deep within a science complex, Dr. Yellenth pored over the latest sensor data. His eyes narrowed. The energy spikes weren't natural, and they weren't malfunctions. They were ships, unknown, fast, coordinated, and they were coming. The unusual readings had been coming in all day. Dr. Yellenth, a tall, wiry alien scientist, with 6 slender arms and 4 sharp, watchful eyes, moved quickly between her monitors. She could process multiple data streams at once, a skill that made her one of the best analysts in the Empire's service. But what she was seeing now made no sense. This is impossible, she muttered, her voice tight as her eyes darted across the shifting patterns on the screens. The data suggested a massive coordinated fleet movement, something so large it defied belief. There's no species in the galaxy with this many ships, she said under her breath. She had tried to alert the Imperial Council earlier that day, but her warnings had been dismissed without a second thought. The Empire had grown complacent in its supremacy. After 3,000 years of dominance, they couldn't conceive of a serious threat to their rule. Dr. Yellenth brought up the latest star charts and began cross-referencing the data with known fleet deployments. Her calculations painted a terrifying picture. Over 1,000 ships, moving in perfect formation, all converging from different points of space. No known species had that kind of naval power. No one, except the Empire itself. Unless... She leaned closer to the screen, her voice barely a whisper. Unless it's a species we thought was extinct. Across the galaxy, the human fleet continued to assemble, from hidden bases, long-forgotten asteroid colonies, and camouflaged shipyards. Ships of every class emerged, nimble fighters, swift cruisers, and massive battleships. Each ship was different from the Empire's designs, sleeker, faster, painted with strange insignias no alien had ever seen before. On the bridge of the UE Thunderstrike, Captain Ryan Bell received his final orders. The Thunderstrike would be part of the first assault wave, tasked with striking Imperial border stations to punch a hole for the main fleet. Ryan stood and addressed his crew over the ship's comm system. All hands. This is the captain. In 6 hours, we engage the enemy. He paused, letting the moment settle. Remember your training. Trust your crewmates. And above all, remember why we fight. We fight for every innocent person the Empire has enslaved. We fight for justice. We fight for freedom. Across the fleet, similar orders were given. And then they moved. Thousands of ships turned toward Imperial space as one, like a colossal arrow aimed at the heart of tyranny. Their engines flared to life, creating a breathtaking light display against the darkness of space, a beautiful, terrible herald of the storm to come. As the fleet neared the borders of Imperial territory, Admiral Hayes sent a message across all frequencies. It was picked up by every world in the Milky Way galaxy, from slave worlds to remote outposts. People of the galaxy, the message began. Humanity has returned. We are the children of Earth, and we have come to break the chains of oppression. The Empire has ruled through fear for too long. Today, freedom returns to the stars. The words spread like wildfire. On brutal labor worlds, weary workers looked up from their tools, with hope flickering in their eyes, for the first time in a generation. On Imperial ships, officers stared in disbelief at their screens, uncertain of what they were seeing, and on the throne world itself, Emperor Vextal finally understood his empire was about to face its greatest challenge in centuries. The storm was coming, and humanity was bringing the thunder. Far out in the Kepler Nebula, Captain Zarfik sat bored in the command chair of his battlecruiser Devastator, a vessel the size of a small city. Routine patrols in this sector were dull. The nebula was beautiful, but nothing ever happened here, until now. "Sir," the sensor officer called, eyes wide. "I'm detecting 3 small vessels approaching." Zarfik straightened. "Show me." The screen lit up, revealing 3 sleek, unfamiliar ships. They were tiny compared to the Devastator, but faster than anything on record. "Helm, bring us closer." "Communications, try to hail them." The young Imperial officer at the comm station T-car worked his controls for a moment, then looked up, uneasy. "Sir." No response. "And their ship designs don't match any known species." Zarfik's brow furrowed. He stared at the screen a moment longer, a chill creeping up his spine. For the first time in years, an Imperial captain felt a twinge of real fear. "Raise shields," he ordered quietly. "Prepare for contact." "No match in our database," the communications officer reported. Captain Zarthik bared his sharp teeth in a grin. This was what he lived for, the thrill of the unknown, the chance to crush a new species beneath the Empire's boot. "Weapons, charge the main guns," he ordered. "They're probably pirates or rebels. We'll vaporize them and be home in time for dinner." But the 3 human ships kept coming, undeterred by the Devastator's sheer size. On the bridge of the EU's Valiant, Commander Nick Torres watched. The massive enemy cruiser closed the distance. The Ranger and Falcon, his 2 escort ships, held tight to his flanks. "Commander, they're charging weapons," his tactical officer reported, tension in his voice. "Should we fall back?" Nick's reply was calm, steady, negative. "This is what we've trained for." He turned to his crew. "All ships, prepare for combat. And remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We fight for every life the Empire has enslaved." Nick had waited his whole life for this moment. He'd been only 10 years old when the Empire's ships descended on Earth. His parents had died defending the evacuation ships that carried what remained of humanity into hiding. Now, after 15 years of preparation, it was time for payback. "Sir." "Incoming hail," called the comms officer. "Put it on screen." Captain Zarthik's reptilian face filled the main display, his expression smug. "Unknown vessels, you are trespassing in Imperial space. Surrender immediately, or be destroyed." Nick met the alien's gaze without a hint of fear. "This is Commander Nick Torres, of the United Earth Fleet. We don't recognize Imperial authority over any space. You have 30 seconds to surrender." Zarthik laughed, a harsh guttural sound that echoed through his bridge. 3 tiny ships against the mighty Devastator. "You must be joking." "Weapons, fire at will." The Imperial cruiser unleashed a barrage of massive energy blasts, enough firepower to level cities. But the human ships moved like shadows, darting and weaving through the deadly beams. They were too small, too fast, and far too agile. "Impossible," Zarthik muttered. "No ship moves like that." Nick smiled coldly as his ships danced through the firestorm. In 25 years of exile, Humanity's technology had leaped far beyond anything the Empire imagined. Their ships were built for speed, maneuverability, and precision strikes, not the lumbering brute force tactics the Empire relied upon. Return fire, Nick commanded. Blue energy beams streaked from the human ships, striking the Devastators. Shields. To the shock of the Imperial crew, those shields buckled under the assault. Melting like ice under a torch, shields down to 60%. The tactical officer shouted in disbelief. Their weapons, they're too small to cause this much damage. Zarthik stared at his displays, his confidence collapsing. In 3 decades of service, he'd never faced anything like this. These human ships weren't just faster, their weapons were decades ahead of Imperial science. Send a distress signal, he ordered. Command must know what's happening. But it was too late. The human ships were already closing in for the kill. The Valiant Ranger and Falcon struck from 3 directions at once, their weapons fire perfectly coordinated. Every shot landed true, each impact carving deep into the Devastator's hull. The battlecruiser's engines erupted in a chain of explosions. Emergency lights flashed across the bridge. Systems failed one by one. Captain Zarthik's final thought wasn't of survival. It was of warning the Empire. At least, they'll know, he muttered. The Devastator disintegrated in a silent explosion, scattering debris across the nebula. There were no survivors. News of the defeat spread like wildfire through Imperial space. On the mining world of Zarian, where slaves toiled endlessly in the deep metal pits, a lone human agent named Tony Garcia heard the report over a smuggled communicator. A slow, satisfied smile spread across his face. Brothers and sisters, he murmured into his covert transmitter, it's begun. Because we seek war, but because we can no longer stand by while tyrants crush the innocent under their heel. For too long, the Empire has ruled through fear and slavery. That ends today. A ripple of determination passed through the fleet as the message reached every ship, from the massive dreadnoughts to the agile strike fighters. On the bridge of the UE Thunderstrike, Captain Ryan Bell exchanged a glance with his crew, each officer standing a little taller at the Admiral's words. Final checks, Ryan ordered. Weapons hot, shields at full, and engines primed. We hit them hard, we hit them fast, and we don't stop until we break their line. On the Imperial side, Admiral Keffer gave his own orders, his reptilian features tight with grim confidence. All ships advance. Maintain formation, do not scatter. Overwhelming firepower will break their spirits before it breaks their hulls. The 2 fleets hurtled toward one another across the void of space, thousands of ships arranged in vast, glittering formations. The humans moved like a living organism, squadrons breaking off, weaving through one another in perfect synchronization. The Imperial fleet, massive and imposing, advanced like a tidal wave. Heavy cruisers and battle platforms anchoring the formation. Contact in 30 seconds. Came the call from Liberty's sensor station. Susan Hayes narrowed her eyes. Martinez, execute the opening strike. From the far left flank, Commander Jake Martinez's battle group surged ahead. Dozens of fast-tack ships broke formation, darting into the gaps between Imperial lines. Their weapons unleashed pinpoint volleys, targeting shield emitters and sensor arrays, creating pockets of chaos within the rigid Imperial formation. They're breaking formation on the left, Admiral, an Imperial officer shouted. Contain them, Keffer roared. Shift cruisers to cover those gaps. But it was a trap, as the Imperial ships moved to plug the breaches. Admiral Hayes' main force struck from the right, led by Captain Bell, and the Thunderstrike. Human battleships opened fire, their blue energy beams slicing through exposed flanks and disoriented cruisers. They're flanking us, someone cried on Keffer's bridge. Impossible. They shouldn't have had time to reposition, but they had. Human crews had drilled this tactic 1,000 times in secret asteroid fields and forgotten star systems. The Empire's numbers were vast, but their coordination was sluggish, built for intimidation, not adaptability. At the heart of the battle, Admiral Hayes issued her final command. All ships, full assault, break the line, break their spirit. The galaxy's largest space battle erupted into a storm of fire and light. Human ships darted between Imperial warships, like wasps attacking a lumbering beast. Every explosion was a victory. Every Imperial ship that fell a step closer to freedom for 1,000 worlds. In the underground chambers of Zarian, Tony Garcia and the gathered slaves huddled around an old transmitter, listening to scattered reports of the battle. "They're winning," a young alien whispered in disbelief. "The humans are winning." And as the tide of war turned, the long-oppressed species of the Empire began to rise. The war had begun, and the Empire, so sure of its eternal dominance, was about to learn what happened when humanity came home. They watched in awed silence as the human ships touched down, not as conquerors, but as liberators. Cargo bays opened to reveal soldiers, medics, engineers, and relief workers carrying food, medicine, and tools. Human banners flew, not to claim dominion, but to signal the arrival of allies. Commander Jake Martinez stepped from his shuttle, greeted by the ragged but determined resistance leaders who had held out against the Empire for years. "We heard the news," one of them, a tall, four-armed alien named Sarek, said, voice rough with emotion. "Is it true? The Emperor is gone." Jake smiled, the fatigue of the long war visible in his eyes, but his voice was steady. "It's over. The Empire has fallen, and you're free." A cheer rose from the gathered crowd, not just of relief, but of something deeper, the rediscovery of hope. Across the galaxy, it was the same story. On the aquatic world of Meridia Prime, chains were cut from the fins and wrists of the enslaved. On the fire mines of Braxos, the mines were shut down and Imperial overseers arrested. In the genetic labs of Kirel IV, Dr. Helen Wright personally deactivated the last of the horrific experiment chambers. Holding a weeping survivor's hand, as she did, the Thunderstrike, Valiant, Liberty, and dozens of other human ships fanned out to every sector, working with local leaders to stabilize once enslaved worlds and form interim governments. Human officers sat beside former slaves and resistance fighters, planning the future together. On Earth, long thought lost by much of the galaxy, the blue planet's lights shone bright as news of the victory reached home. Memorial services were held for those who never saw this day. Statues were planned not of emperors or conquerors, but of unity, humans standing shoulder to shoulder with their alien allies in the Imperial capital's shattered throne room. Tony Garcia watched as Emperor Vexdal was taken away in chains, his eyes empty of defiance now. Tony turned to Susan Hayes on the main view screen. "It's done, Admiral." Susan gave a small, grim smile. "Good work, Agent Garcia. Bring him in. The galaxy deserves justice." "Yes, ma'am." And so it began, not an age of human rule, but an age of cooperation. A new galactic assembly of free worlds was formed, with representatives from every liberated planet. Humanity took its seat not as overlords, but as equals. Admiral Susan Hayes, final transmission to the galaxy read. "This is not a human victory. This is a victory for every being who ever suffered beneath a tyrant's boot. From this day forward, every world will govern itself, and no empire shall rise to enslave the many for the power of the few. Together, we are free." The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter. The war was over. The healing had begun, and the future of the galaxy belonged to its people at last. "Citizens of Haven 7, Captain Ryan Bell announced as he stepped off his transport, "The Empire has fallen. You are free." A wave of joyous cheers swept through the streets, echoing 4 kilometers. Children who had known nothing but fear laughed and danced in the open, while adults wept, overwhelmed by the sudden reality that their long nightmare was finally over. But the humans didn't stop with military victory. Admiral Susan Hayes established a council on the neutral world of Haven, gathering representatives from every species in the galaxy. The aim wasn't to build a new empire, but to ensure no single race could ever again dominate the rest. "We've learned from history," Admiral Hayes told the assembled delegates. "When power is concentrated in the hands of one group, it inevitably leads to tyranny. This new galactic government will be founded on cooperation, equality, and mutual respect." For months, the council worked tirelessly, drafting a charter of rights and laws to protect every world and every species. Human ships patrolled the space lanes, not as conquerors, but as peacekeepers, ensuring no remnants of the old ways would rise again. Jake Martinez, now promoted to admiral, was tasked with overseeing a network of monitoring stations scattered across the galaxy. These outposts would watch for threats and dispatch assistance to any world in need. "We're not here to rule the galaxy," Jake told a gathering of planetary leaders. "We're here to make sure no one else does either. Every world deserves the freedom to chart its own future." In the years that followed, the galaxy slowly healed from the scars of 3,000 years of imperial oppression. Former enemies reopened trade routes. Science, art, and culture flourished as knowledge was shared freely between species. On Earth, rebuilt, thriving, and resettled, Admiral Susan Hayes stood in a garden overlooking the tranquil blue oceans of humanity's home world. Age had turned her hair white, but the fire in her eyes still burned with unwavering resolve. "Admiral," said her aide, a young officer named Patricia King, approaching with a datapad, "latest reports from the Outer Rim trade is up 30%. The former imperial worlds are adapting well to governance." Susan smiled. "Good. And the monitoring stations?" "Quiet, Admiral. No signs of unrest or anyone trying to revive the old ways." Susan gazed up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, billions of beings were finally living in freedom because humanity had refused to let tyranny endure. The children of Earth had returned to the stars, not as conquerors, but as guardians of liberty. The age of empires was over. A new era had begun. In the distance, ships prepared to set out once more, carrying with them the promise of peace, protection, and freedom to every corner of the galaxy. The human fleet had arrived, and the universe would never be the same again.